Welcome to Unity of Charlotte, where our mission is to nurture a deep and mature experience of God through the practice of unity principles. Simply put, we are here to love, serve, and grow. I'm Lawrence Tolliver. I serve as Vice President and Secretary of the Board of Trustees of Unity of Charlotte. And I am so glad for you to join us today in person, by Zoom, or on YouTube. You're used to seeing our board president, Reverend Pat Dre, but she is traveling for family business this weekend, and you'll be able to see her next week. Let us start today's service by sharing our statement of oneness, and let that lead us into our opening prayer. Together, there is one presence and one power in my life and universe, God, the good omnipotence. Pray with me, will you? The peace of God is available to each of us. Whenever we feel unsettled about the changes happening in the outside world, we can remember that we have the power to determine our responses. After all, if we can decide to be upset about it all, with a little practice, spiritual practice, we can decide not to be upset. We know that inner peace is the key to outer peace. We begin to achieve that inner peace, to connect with it, by settling our minds and softening our hearts, acknowledging the peace that accompanies our lives. We discover it was there all along, perhaps obscured for a bit by the din and clamor of this outside world. But that will not last always. The peace lasts always. We focus on our thoughts of peace, and we affirm the Christ consciousness to which we have awakened. The news of the world, when we abide in this Christ consciousness, has no power over us. We align our hearts and minds with God and claim that deep, lasting peace. We repeat throughout our day the affirmation to stay peaceful. I am at peace. When we choose peace, it fills our minds and our hearts, and it lights our lives. We are awakened to this truth. We know that the Creator hears this affirmative prayer and responds by manifesting what we are beholding in the prayer. We release it, and so it is. Amen. I want to remind you, those of you that are utilizing YouTube, we would like for you to like us. So when you get an opportunity to express your opinion on YouTube, we trust that it'll be a like. Now, we have begun to gather in person here at Unity of Charlotte And we certainly look forward to meeting many of you who we've only known on Zoom. So as you feel safe about it, please come and visit with us. After our message, I do have a special word about the current status of the coronavirus, something that our board of trustees wants you to take into consideration. But that will happen after the message. Now, one of the things that you've learned about unity and about Unity of Charlotte is that prayer is extremely important to us. It's the way we connect with Spirit. It is the way we communicate. And so we do want you to know that we're available to assist you with your prayer needs at any time. We have a group that is very committed to praying on your behalf. Their prayers will be affirmative prayers. You can access us on unityofcharlotte.org. Our website address, unityofcharlotte.org. And you may come to the particular button that enables you to request the prayer that you want us to, share with you. So all of that will be done in confidence. And we do want you to trust that it will be between our prayer group and you. And that's it. Just because I'm the vice president of the board of trustees, it does not mean I find out who you are. I do not. Okay, so I want you to feel comfortable about that. In addition, of course, Unity Worldwide has a very famous approach to prayer. We call it silent unity. And you may approach silent unity through your telephone, your cell phone. Just dial 800 now pray for personal affirmative prayer. 800 NOW-PRAY. Now, let me just mention a few things about the coming week and weeks, probably. We have a number of ministries within that meet on a regular basis, and they sustained themselves during the last 17, 18 months of COVID because the people involved are dedicated to their causes. We have a Tuesday affirmative prayer and meditation group that has been meeting that entire time and continues to meet on Tuesday evenings. We also have a path of initiation that is being taught by one of our metaphysical sisters, Barbara Wolf, and I do commend it to you that if you are interested in the higher meanings of things and scriptures, etc., please consider getting involved with the path of initiation. We also have a service group that is comprised of men. We call it the Unity Men's Group. They are very helpful in assisting other organizations within other groups, connect groups, service groups. They are very helpful in assisting all of us to execute our programs, and at the same time, their fellowship with one another is quite meaningful and helpful to each participant. So they meet twice each month. And finally, we continue with a long-standing course in miracles that is being taught, has been taught for years by Alan Batten, former president of our board of trustees, a deeply spiritual man that is a comfort to all of us. And so I want you to just go to our website and you will be able to access any one of these great programs, get the details, and find out how you can make a connection and meet and greet these specialized groups that help you on your spiritual journey. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce our speaker for today. She has a great subject today. It's called the 1-2 punch. And I've tuned into her numerous times. She has been available to this congregation for Zoom services for a year or so now. And she is very principled and really, really is faithful to unity principles. This is Reverend Robin Volker that I'm speaking to you about. And I've looked at her bio, and I have noticed one thing. She loves starting things. She loves initiating new, wonderful ways to acknowledge just who we are, that we are spiritual beings. It's a special thing in her life. And when she awoke to who she is, it lit a fire that refuses to go out. So I know you're just going to love what Reverend Robin Volker has to say today. Thank you.
Good morning, Unity of Charlotte.
Good morning.
It's great to be with you again. I only wish I could see your smiling faces. That would be absolutely fabulous. And thank you for this technology, this opportunity to come and be with you in your sanctuary through technology and with you on Zoom. And Lawrence, thank you for that very warm welcome. Very delightful. It makes me like myself a little more. Thank you. This morning, I do want to talk with you about the 1-2 punch. And I'm going to tell you exactly what I mean by that. But first, I want to tell you a story that you've probably heard several times before. Do you remember the fairy tale of the princess and the pea? The prince in a great kingdom had come of age and was ready to find his princess. And the royal family looked far and wide to be able to find the right and perfect match that would help the prince to carry on the traditions of the kingdom and also make his heart go pitter-patter. But to no avail, they had not found the perfect match. And then one night, in the middle of a pouring down rainstorm, there was a knock at the door. And when they opened the door, they found a small young woman standing there, drenched to the bone, hair in her face, her clothes clinging to her. And they brought her into the foyer, and she said, "I am a princess, and I have come to meet the prince." Well, a lot of people wanted to be a princess, even though they might not have been royal. And the queen was skeptical, but she invited the young woman in out of the storm and told the attendants to warm her up and dry her off. And then privately, the queen talked to the chambermaid and said to her, "Take a small pea and place it underneath the mattress. And then on top of the mattress, place all of the feather mattresses that we have so that she will not even know the pea is there." The chambermaid did as she was told. The young woman had a bath, she had her hair washed and dried, and then she climbed a big ladder up to the top of that pile of mattresses and went to bed. The next morning, they all gathered around the big table in the castle, and the queen said, "My dear, how did you sleep?" And the young woman replied, "Queen, I do not mean to be impolite, but I did not sleep a wink. No matter which way I tossed or turned, there was a lump in the middle of the bed. I am sorry, but it was a fitful night." Well, that told the queen that she was indeed a princess, and so the prince was allowed to court her, and they were later married and lived happily ever after. So why am I telling you this story? If we take a metaphysical look at this story, it is not about a tiny vegetable underneath a pile of mattresses. It is about those small, dried up thoughts that are underneath our conscious awareness. Do you know what I'm talking about? Those thoughts that you may have become aware of, those thoughts that keep getting in the way of you breaking through some imposed barrier in your life. Or you may not be aware of those thoughts, but something keeps holding you back. We've tried to cover up our hurts from the past, and we have developed these coping mechanisms. Maybe those thoughts and those coping mechanisms worked for us for a while, but maybe they no longer serve us. And we know these old thoughts and feelings that we have pushed down into the recesses of our minds will eventually push up like a beach ball that's being held under the water, and it will pop out of our hands and bound across the pool. In our childhood, we may have been taught to not feel our feelings, to push them down and suppress them, and not let anyone know what's really going on for us, until that became a way of life. Now that we are metaphysical truth students, we know that that is error thinking. But what do we do about it? In New Thought circles, we teach the spiritual tools of denials and affirmations. And denials and affirmations are a way for us to pull out and get rid of those dried up thoughts that are holding us back, and to replace them with thoughts that will move us toward the life that we would love living. The process of denials and affirmations is so simple that many people disregard it and are not aware of how effective it can be and how powerful it can be. Denials are the process of tearing down and moving out the old thoughts. And affirmations are a way of building up and constructing new thinking. Denials destroy and remove the negative thoughts and negative aspects of our thinking. And affirmations bring us new beliefs, new possibilities, new attitudes based on spiritual truth. The process of denials is like pulling weeds in your flower garden, and the affirmations is like planting the flowers that you really want. At our home in North Georgia, Rick and I have a very large landscape bed. It is about 30 feet deep and 150 feet long on a hill. When we moved here, it was all mulch. Imagine that big, expansive space, and it was a haven for weeds to grow. After a couple of years of trying to maintain that bed with only mulch, we decided there had to be a better way. And being a little bit of a gardener myself, I decided to do some research, and we decided to landscape that bed with plant material. So the first step was to get in there and get all those weeds out. That was spraying, hoeing, digging, pulling. It was backbreaking. But we knew if we did it one more time, because we had to do it multiple times a year, if we did it one more time and put in new material and new mulch and kept it up, that we would have new beauty in our yard. That we did. I drew out a design, we bought new plant material, and Rick dug a lot of holes. In the end, we probably have 50 plants in that huge bed, not counting spring bulbs. And then we mulched around them, and we created beauty where we had only had weeds. This is a physical example of how denials and affirmations can work in your life. We removed what we didn't want, and we planted in its place what we did want. Many people that I counsel have a hard time understanding how to use denials and affirmations to their benefit. Let's look at what Jesus said that relates to this topic. In Matthew 23, Jesus said, "Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, for you cleanse the outside of the cup and the plate, but the inside is full of extortion and covetous." You blind Pharisee, he said. First cleanse the inside of the cup and of the plate, and the outside also may be clean. What was Jesus teaching us here? Was he teaching us how to wash our dishes? I don't think so. He was teaching us how to change our thinking. We spend a lot of time working on the outside, on the appearance that we have to others and to ourselves. We have our own opinion of ourselves, right? We have our own expectation of who we think we are. But do we spend as much time working on the inside, on our spiritual consciousness? If we work to change our thinking, then everything external will align with a higher spiritual truth. The external stuff begins to take care of itself when we take care of our inner process. For those of you who still have a spin washing machine, and all of you might not, what happens if to your clothes if that machine does not spin and empty? Well, that dirty water comes right back on your clothes, doesn't it? If we continue to think the same thoughts and do the same actions, we will always get the same results. If we want to raise our consciousness to a higher level of thinking, we have to get rid of those worn out, old, repetitive, weedy thoughts. And once we clear them out of our minds, we create a vacuum. It's a vacant space, and we must move quickly to follow up with a God thought, a higher thought, a truth-centered thought. If Rick and I had just pulled all the weeds, which we had already done for a couple of years, and not planted new material that would grow and cover up that space, the weeds would come right back. Some of them try to come back anyway. We have to continue to tend that landscape bed. But as the new plant material grows and matures, it's less and less work for us. You and I must continually watch our thinking. This is not just a one-time thing. The 1-2 punch is not a one-time thing that you do and then you don't ever have to do again. It's a technique that you learn to use and use often. We can release, give that first punch, deny and release any thought about our health, our finances, our relationships, our world. And then the second punch is to replace those thoughts with more positive ones. Someone said to me recently, I don't understand why people in church keep saying those silly things as if that's going to change anything. Denials and affirmations do not change situations, circumstances, or people. But they do change how you think and how you respond to situations, circumstances, and people. And when you use a statement of denial or release, if you prefer that word, it's the same principle, then you are not denying the appearance of what you see in your life. You're denying that that situation or circumstance will have power over you. You're denying that the situation or circumstance will have power over you. You're denying that it will have space in your life. And you're refusing to allow that situation or circumstance to be powerful in and of itself. A Course in Miracles teaches us that we give meaning to everything we see, and in that meaning, we give power. If we don't give power to these outside situations and circumstances, then they shrivel up and become much less bothersome. Let's take an example. What if a man has a habit of chain smoking cigarettes? Used to be much more common than it is these days. But let's just use that as an addiction that he wants to overcome, but it could be anything. So he would not say, I don't smoke, because he does. And he wouldn't say that I don't crave a cigarette, because he does. He craves it multiple times a day. But he could say, tobacco no longer controls my life. Or he could say, I release my need for cigarettes. He's denying that he's controlled by this substance outside of himself. And in doing so, he's taken a big step forward to releasing his addiction. I work with people who have addictive behaviors, and I see when they begin to change their language and hear this new language, it opens their mind like turning on a light bulb. A tiny light begins to shine in the corners of their mind when they realize that their addiction is not an inevitable part of their life. Maybe you go to a doctor with a physical complaint and you're given a diagnosis. And you can begin the denial process by stating that this problem does not belong in your body. Myrtle used the denial, I cannot inherit sickness. Myrtle Fillmore, the mother of Unity, I cannot inherit sickness. That was her denial. I work with people who have esteem issues, and together we deny a poor self-image will not control me. We clear out and clean up our thinking, and then we replace and replant with affirmations. Affirmations build a new thought, a different thought, a higher thought into that cleared area of your mind. An affirmation is a tool that states the truth about the situation based on spiritual principle. An affirmation is spoken to convince your intellect and soothe your emotions. My favorite affirmation is, everything is working out for me. That gives my intellect something to work on, and it definitely soothes my emotions. I bet I say that affirmation several times every day. Everything is working out for me. In truth, everything is working out for me, for God is in everything. And even when things don't go the way I think they should. For the guy who has a smoking problem, his affirmation might be, I enjoy life with less cigarettes. Or, I am free of my addiction to tobacco. These affirmations are not about making something happen. The affirmation is about you accepting more of God's goodness into your life at a higher level, at a level of truth consciousness. Myrtle's affirmation was, I am a child of God. I love that. I add a little to it. I usually say I'm a divine and holy child of God. Sometimes I say perfect, because I was never told I was perfect as a child. And it makes me feel really good to know that to God, I am perfect, whole, and complete. So I often say I am a perfect and holy child of God. Affirmations work not only in the realm of ideas, but they work on our physical bodies. These earth suits that we wear are very receptive to words. And when you repeat the affirmation, you're actually programming your body to do those things that you're affirming. Psychologists refer to this as cognitive restructuring. It's actually redesigning your thinking. For the person struggling with self-esteem, she might affirm, I love me just the way I am. And for the person who has a negative medical diagnosis, he might affirm, God is healing me now. Or I'm healing moment by moment, day by day. Affirmations take those new thoughts, those new expectations, and they lock them into our minds. You know, what we think about every day, we think about the same things, really. And our repetitive thinking actually creates grooves in the gray matter of our brains. In Alaska during the rainy season, a lot of roads in Alaska are dirt roads. And when it rains, they become mud. Deep ruts are gouged in them as the vehicles travel back and forth. And then shortly after the rainy season gets there, it turns cold, winter comes, and those ruts freeze solid. At the beginning of one of those particularly long roads, a sign reads, choose your rut carefully. You'll be in it for the next 50 miles. We often get into rut thinking. Sometimes we can intellectually understand the spiritual tools of denial and affirmation. And sometimes we emotionally yearn for those tools to work for us and to be effective for us, but we don't intellectually understand them. The good news is, whether you intellectually understand it or whether you desire it with your heart, the process will work for you either way. The bad news is, if you can't grasp it with your mind or your heart, then you are probably not ready for change, and it will appear as silly words and phrases and have no effect. If you really want to change your thoughts and feelings about a situation, a circumstance, or approach something from a higher, more spiritual perspective, then in your own quiet moments with Spirit, you will find the right and perfect statements to help you to be free of old thinking and statements that will help you reach for that higher thought. Here's a little secret. You don't have to completely believe the denial or affirmation before you begin. Some people think that these statements are like little lies or untruths, and I'll just say it until I believe it. But that's really not the case. If you're practicing true spiritual application of denials and affirmations, they're not little lies, for they are based on spiritual truth. They're not based on the physical truth of what you see in the appearance, but they're based on a higher truth of God. When my stepson Ricky had his automobile accident and was in the hospital for a long time, his muscles atrophied. He couldn't move his arms or his legs. But when the physical therapist worked with him, the muscles remembered what they were supposed to do. When you remind yourself of spiritual truth through the process of denials and affirmations, you begin to reshape your thinking, and that reshapes your outcomes. You will begin to remember that you're spirit first and human second, and you'll begin to regain spiritual power and grow to a greater level of spiritual power. Make sure your denials and affirmations are rooted in truth. You're not to try to affirm that an apple tree is going to give you oranges, or that you can jump off a roof and deny gravity. You want to deny and affirm in spiritual truth and spiritual power. Here's some affirmations that you might like. I dare to believe that all things are working together for my good. God is guiding my every step. There's no spot where God is not. Nothing is lost in spirit. What is rightfully mine comes to me with ease and in grace. God is my source, and all my financial needs are now being met. So those statements pretty much cover the spectrum. They help life to align at a higher level. They remind you that there's life and health in your body, and your finances are not limited by what is in your bank account. So, to my virtual friends at Unity of Charlotte, it is time to stop tossing and turning and learn the 1-2 punch of denials and affirmations to create a rich, healthy, and rewarding life. It is written in Romans 12:2, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is good and acceptable and perfect of God. Let's take time for reflection and meditation. Just find that quiet, comfortable place where you are. Feel the breath in your body. Allow the chair to take all of the weight. Sweet and gracious Spirit, in this prayer time, we pause to open to a renewing of our minds. Our outer lives are renewed as we renew our thinking. In this quiet time, we speak to any lodged error thought that is not the truth of our being. And to that error thought, we say, "You are not welcome in my mind anymore. You are not welcome in my mind anymore. I release you and let you go." To the thoughts that have robbed you of your peace and well-being, say to these thoughts, "You cannot hurt me anymore." You cannot hurt me anymore. I release you and let you go. As we take a brief pause, just allow anything that needs to be released in your mind to float away. Any old thoughts, any repetitious thoughts, any fears and pains, physical, mental, emotional, relational, financial. We pause just for a few breaths. In your mind's eye, see it floating away. We now recognize that those old embedded thoughts are subservient to the inner Christ thinking. Breathe in that empowerment. Breathe in strength and clarity. Breathe in new life. Claim a change in consciousness right now in this moment. Allow, receive, accept. In your mind, quietly say that with me. Allow, receive, accept. Allow, receive, accept. Deny that disease, lack, or bondage of any kind can control you. Affirm health, prosperity, freedom in all your life and all your affairs. Now the divine peace, order, and right outworking of God fills our minds. We relax and know that Spirit is greater than any external force in our lives. We pause again for a few breaths to allow our consciousness to be risen to the Christ mind. In Proverbs 3:6, it says, in all your ways, acknowledge God, and God will make straight your path. Affirm with me now. God is with me always. I am one with Spirit. All things are working out for me. I am a divine and perfect child of God. We know these spiritual truths are so, and so we allow them to be our truths, now and forevermore. Amen and amen.
Spiritual work.